Previously on Parenting by Heart.
On our first show, we learned that unconditional love is the foundation for parenting.
The basic foundation for a solid relationship with your child or teenager is unconditional love.
But the biggest mistake parents make is assuming that they naturally convey that love.
I've never met a parent who didn't love their child. I've met some parents who've had a great deal of difficulty conveying that love.
A child is far more affected by our actions than by our words.
Parents also want to know how to change their children's behavior, how to get them to clean their room, or how to keep them from smoking or drinking.
What they're asking in another way is, how do I influence my child? And my response back to them is, you influence them out of the relationship that you have with them.
Yes, I love you unconditionally, but that doesn't mean I let you just run over me.
Dr. Campbell then gave us 5 ways to break defiance in a child. First, simply use request. Second, try commands. Third, gentle physical manipulation. Fourth, behavior modification. And the last resort is punishment. Coming up on today's show, we will discover how to break temper tantrums, how to handle backtalk, and what to do with a strong-willed or angry child. Now, on with Parenting by Heart.
Hi, I'm Ted Lowe, and this is my wife, Nancy, and welcome to Parenting by Heart. As you can see, we're close to becoming parents ourselves.
Very close, and even now we have questions, specific questions like, what do we do when he throws a temper tantrum? How do we get him to clean his room? And what happens when he backtalks?
And the questions become more difficult, like, how do we protect him? How do we protect him from things like drugs and alcohol?
What issues are you struggling with?
One of the largest struggles we have with the children is just their simple chores in the house.
Being defiant and saying no, he won't do them.
Teaching him to control his temper.
Having to say it 3 times.
One child I could send to the room and that would be deaf. Another child, great, no problem. I'll see you in a few hours.
Disciplining the girls at this age is much more challenging than when they were little and you could put them in a timeout.
The timeout stuff, it does not work. She will not sit still.
He's stomping around the house, he's slamming doors.
I'm scratching my head saying, what am I going to do? There are times I wish I just knew the easy road to get through this stage.
In our house, around our house, you know that's completely forbidden.
When you're dealing with a difficult child, you can become so desperate. So we've gone to best-selling authors Dr. Ross Campbell and Dr. Kevin Lehman. We've also gone to Christian counselors Pam Johnson and Tim Smith to help us find some answers to your questions.
Parenting isn't an exact science, it's more of an art. If we're looking for that specific formula that we can apply like a scientific approach would, it's probably not going to work because our kids have a way of working against our scientific methods or formulas.
Parenting is more of an art form because each child is different. But our experts have come up with some basic concepts that will help you with each child and in each situation. Let's start with the simple chore of cleaning their room.
When I ask them to do something, like clean their room, and they don't do it much at all. They'll pick up a few things, and to them they're cleaning their room. They threw the blankets up on the bed. And
sometimes Lynette has to end up being the enforcer.
Doug told her to clean her room this morning before they left, and she said she did. And you've got to see it. It's not. I mean, she picked up things, but
you can at least walk on the floor.
I'm wondering, how come she doesn't see it the way we do? How come she doesn't understand this is not nice to live in? And that really makes me want to pull my hair out.
Right now, she's down playing with a friend a couple of doors down, and and I think we need to say to her, "You're going to come back up here, and this needs to be cleaned up because in about 10 minutes, most of it could be cleaned up." And then you're free to go back down there again.
But have you done that?
Well, see, it hasn't been consistent.
You have a child, you've asked to pick up the room. They haven't done it. They violated a boundary there. So you let them know ahead of time, I want the room picked up, and maybe even before that time you've established a rule in your house that when I ask you to do something, I expect you to do it on the first request. And if that doesn't happen, there's going to be a consequence. That may be that you don't watch television that night. It may be that you don't get to go out the next Friday night, depending on the age of the child.
Important principle. Stick to your guns. You know, if you're going to say something is going to happen, it better happen. But you better take some time to think before you say it, too, parents. Because lots of times we shoot from our hip. And when you shoot from the hip, usually you don't hit the target.
But I watch what I say to the child when I am impressing that consequence. I don't call the child names. I don't call them lazy or hard-headed. I point out to them specifically what they've done that's violated the contract and what the consequence will be for that. I might also include, I have expectations of you because I know you're capable of many things. So I offer an encouraging remark. If I discipline a child and they know that I love them, but I am going to set boundaries for them and have expectations and consequences for misbehavior, they know that I'm working in their best interest.
Since every child is different, you may have to be creative in setting boundaries and consequences that work for your child. It's called reality discipline.
They have a playroom upstairs, and if they don't clean it up, you set the timer, and it's their responsibility to clean it up. If they don't get it done, you go upstairs to the bag, and whatever's left out, you put in the bag, and we're going to give it away to somebody. It's going to go to Goodwill or whatever.
What we tell them is that if they can't pick their toys up, that means they have too many, and that there are other children that need those toys.
Collecting toys for charity may work for one child, but Dr. Lehman tried a different dose of reality discipline with his own son.
Reality discipline is a principled approach to raising kids, and it'll make sense to most parents. My son Kevin was, I think, 16 at the time, and he had forgotten to take the garbage out. Well, I see it wasn't done, I take it out. I don't say a thing to him. I wait. It's about 10 days later to his allowance day, and he says, Dad, you're $10 short. I said, no. I said, Kevin, you're $10 short. You know, last Monday, you forgot to take the garbage out. I took it out for you. I said, you essentially paid me $10 for taking your garbage out.
Another issue that parents are dealing with is the temper tantrum. And while temper tantrums can sometimes be embarrassing, they can always be exasperating.
When a kid throws a temper tantrum on a floor, there's a built-in audience, you parent. I've had this happen to myself at a mall with my daughter Hannah. She wanted a candy treat. I said no. She was overtired and started to wail and moan on the floor. And I'm always telling parents, you know, step over the child. There's a great temptation to step on the child. And if you step on the child, it's going to go from bad to worse. You step over a child and start walking away. 9.5 out of 10 cases, that little boy or that little girl, age 3 or 4, is going to say, Mommy, Daddy, wait for me. Why? Because that temper tantrum was thrown for one specific purpose. The purpose was to say that I, as a 3 or 4-year-old, am in full control of you, the adult. In essence, I am in authority over you.
While younger kids use the temper tantrum, older kids tend to display their defiance by talking back.
She's at the age where she knows how to use her sarcasm, and she has a tendency to want to use that on us. When we tell her to do something, here lately, she just sort of gives us this look or rolls her eyes, and we have to tell her like 5 times before she'll actually do it. She doesn't have respect for adults right now, and we really don't know how to deal with it.
Now, this is a real case history. 10-year-old kid, smart mouth, who says this, you know, I hate your guts. We're not going to let this thing pass. We're not going to say, oh, he's going through a stage, or I feel guilty because of the divorce and the remarriage, so I'm going to let him get away with this. I'm going to remember. It's 2 hours later, same morning. He comes down and says, come on, stepmom, we got to go. Or maybe, come on, Mom, we got to go. Soccer game. Playoff Saturday game. He's the star goalie. He's got his little number 9 on his uniform. She says, honey, I'm sorry. The car isn't going anywhere, and either are you. Now, enter reality discipline. What? I'm going to get in trouble. What is wrong with you? Now we've got an answer for him finally. Honey, I think you know what's wrong with me. And he rolls his eyes in pubescent-like style. Well, you're mad about this morning, aren't you? Well, I'm upset, yeah. Now what does he do? He scrambles like an NFL quarterback on a Sunday afternoon. Because he knows he's got big doo-doo problems ahead of him. Mama or stepmama is not driving him to that game, so he says to Mom or stepmom, sorry. Well, honey, I'm glad to know you can say you're sorry. That's good. And I forgive you. You're forgiven. He's got the smile back in his face. I mean, he's as good at that ball game as he can be. I mean, he's there. He's home free. He says, come on, Mom, we got to go. We're going to be late. Honey, I told you, the car isn't going anywhere, neither are you. That's reality discipline. That's sticking to your guns. Now, some people, as they hear that, they don't like that. They say, wait a minute, time out, Doc. Doesn't this kid have a responsibility to his teammates? Doesn't he have a responsibility to his coach? Yeah, he does, Mm-hmm. But my question back is, who does he have more responsibility to? Family comes first, okay? And so you stick to your guns, and again, who is better prepared to call the coach and maybe call some of his teammates as well, or explain to them at school why he wasn't there, than he, that little 10-year-old. Now there's a lesson in life.
Those life lessons are essential. But because you still love your child, you want to protect them from those painful consequences.
Take school, for example. How much should you check or help with their homework?
My oldest son, Grant, was to turn in a homework assignment, and I was trying to check it for him. And I could tell the first 2 or 3 questions were already incorrect. I said, Grant, you need to change some of these answers because you have not done it correctly. And when he left for school, I knew that I had put him in a mood that was not his best mood for a day at school.
The Christian home needs to be a place where kids learn to fail. I know it doesn't sound very North American to say kids need to fail, but they do need to learn to fail. And what makes a difference in your kid's life and mine is when they strike out in life at something, whether they get back in the batter's box once again and take their cuts. That's what makes a difference.
Grant's mistakes on his homework will show up on his report card. That's reality discipline. If we do not allow our children to learn from their mistakes, what happens when we're not there?
And it's also possible to put so much pressure on our children that no matter what they do, they feel like failures, and this can be so devastating.
My dad really pressured me to make good grades in school and be this perfect daughter that came home, did her homework. I never thought I was good enough. I was very angry, because I never felt like I could live up to their standards, telling me, you gotta go to school, you gotta make good grades, this isn't good enough. Always wanting me to study, always just getting on me. So I was very pressured, He kept up with me, called my school, talked to my teachers. I mean, it was bad. It was real bad. I couldn't take it. I was angry. I was a very angry person, so I quit. I didn't like myself because I was always giving up and I didn't think I was really worth anything.
Anger is a natural emotion. We all feel it from time to time, and basically it's a result of I feel like I've been treated unfairly, I'm going to be angry about that. If I don't teach my child how to express anger appropriately, okay, they're going to stuff it, and they're going to stuff it, and they're going to stuff it, and it's going to come out in several ways. It can come out in a violent eruption, but the most destructive way it can come out is in the form of passive-aggressive anger. Passive-aggressive behavior is particularly prominent in that 12, 13, 14 age group. Part of that is normal developmentally. If you ever question whether your child is being passive-aggressive with you, ask yourself this question: is their behavior really making me crazy? Because if the answer to that is yes, then chances are they are employing passive-aggressive behavior. It's also important to know that child is probably not consciously saying, I'm going to be passive-aggressive to get back and upset, because it's not a conscious approach.
I
didn't realize it for years that this was starting to happen. My middle son, Chad, has a lot of these kind of tendencies. What I've noticed with him is we'll be in a hurry or we need to get to the car. He's the last one to the car. He's still getting his things. He forgets things all the time. I really have to kind of categorize those into those passive-aggressive behaviors, and he's used those now to kind of get attention or to make himself known, or just because he's so angry and he's not expressing it well. Anywhere you have a divorced family, I think you're going to find angry children. They didn't have a choice on it. They didn't have a part in that. They certainly wouldn't have chosen that. And so now they're left with the pieces and the leftover of whatever happened, and they're angry about it.
I think we all agree that back talk from a child is misbehavior. Disrespect from a child is misbehavior, but we can't force the child to keep all anger suppressed inside. Otherwise, it's going to come out in an anti-authority attitude. So when a child brings that anger to us, we should be honored, because that is the time we train them.
If my child is angry, I want to know about it. I may not agree with them, I may have a different perspective, but I want to know what's going on in them. Initially, they may express it in a rageful manner, and I'm going to teach them over a period of time. I'm really glad you told me how angry you were. Next time, I think you can tell me how angry you were, and you don't have to shout at me, or you don't have to use a curse word, or you don't have to throw your toy across the room. You can just tell me how angry you are, and I'm going to listen.
Say, I'm so glad you brought your anger to me. Especially with the people-pleaser children, you have to say this. Otherwise, they think that they're doing something wrong, and they'll never do it again. Especially if you dump your anger on them, they'll never do it again, and they'll never develop into a mature person.
In order for you to teach your child how to express their anger, you must allow them to express that anger to you.
We'll be right back with more Power Struggles in Parenting after this brief message.
Nose plugs, $3. Fuzzy blue monster puppet, $12.95. Blue dress shirt, $35. Trying to potty train your 2-year-old before he's ready? Pointless. Some things come easy in life. Everything else is called parenting.
An addiction is sweeping our nation. It is of epidemic proportions. And it could be as close as your home. Small group Bible study. The Word. Is it in you?
A message from the Total TV Network.
Welcome back to Parenting by Heart. So far, we've discovered that reality discipline helps our children learn from their mistakes. They are able to experience the consequences of their own behavior.
We've also learned from the experts that we must teach our children to express their anger appropriately. And whether we like their perspective on why they're angry, it's very important that you and I find out what's making them so angry.
Now let's look at some serious problems that even young children are facing.
Our relationships at home aren't that good anymore, and so we don't have a very good background.
There's so many drugs out here, and everybody is always pressuring us to do everything.
Somebody offered me a drink, and I took it. I didn't think twice about it.
I would just take a chance and drink it, just to be out with the guys and to fit in with the crowd.
It wasn't like a big deal to me. I was like, okay, whatever, and I just did it because everybody else was.
Young people are facing great temptations to drink and to take drugs. And this is not just some problem that's happening out there. This is something that your kids are struggling with every day. Author and counselor Tim Smith has a lot of experience working with the youth, and he offers us this insight.
I believe that kids use drugs and alcohol because they're hurting. And what they really need is peace inside. And if you can remember that word peace, it spells out why kids are often involved in substance abuse. P-E-A-C-E. First of all, P, kids face a lot of pressure. There's external peer pressure, but there's also some internal pressure that they face, maybe feelings of rejection. E, escape. Many kids use drugs or alcohol because they're trying to escape their stress-filled lives. There might be a divorce at home, there might be financial worries, there might be some type of pain that they're trying to get away from. A, availability. If kids want drugs or alcohol, they can get it. C, curiosity. We see a lot of ads on TV, print ads. A lot of media are focused on alcohol, let's say. The final reason why kids use drugs and alcohol is E, emptiness. They have a certain void within them, and they think that by using drugs or alcohol, it will take away the pain. It'll take away the emptiness or loneliness. And you know what? It might, but for only a short season. They wake up the next day feeling even more empty.
Some of the things my parents have said to me that have been painful would be that I'm just a big disappointment, that they don't need me anymore and I don't need them, and that basically like I'm gonna end up like my sisters, like worthless or nothing out there, with on welfare and not get a good job or anything like that. And that to me is like saying that I have no hope at all. When they tell me stuff like that, it's like I feel empty inside, like there's nothing there anymore. So I would go to my room and just start crying and crying. And as those moments where I really got bad that I didn't want to live anymore. Like there was no point. And the most important thing I would say in my life would be to have my father's love. Just, you know, for him to be happy with me.
If you have a kid at home that you suspect is suffering and hurting, it might be empty, it might be at risk to using drugs and alcohol, there is something you can do. You can decide to fill his or her emotional love tank. If we can fill those emotional love tanks, then our child is going to be stronger and be able to resist the opportunities and the temptation and the pressure to be involved in substance abuse.
Sometimes I see parents, and by the time I come in contact with the family, their child is a teenager, an acting out teenager. That's what brings them into my office. And the parent says, well, I hear what you have to say about loving my child unconditionally and making time for them. And I see where maybe I haven't conveyed that in the past, but they're 16. Is there anything I can do at this point that'll make a difference? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, there is. Don't we all know people who as adults come into contact with unconditional love, who maybe become a Christian as an adult, and you've seen the transformation that occurs in that person's life as a result of experiencing God's unconditional love and Jesus and the love of Jesus. So it's never too late for a person to be transformed. As long as there's breath in their body, there's still the possibility that they can be transformed by experiencing unconditional love.
Unconditional love has the power to change hearts.
However, if you don't have a loving relationship with your child, you may lose your ability to influence your child in a positive way.
On our next show, we will talk specifically about how to pass along moral and spiritual values.
See you next time.
And I'll put you in the back seat. Don't let Dave fall.
Hey, Steven, look over here, buddy.
Look at Mr. Trent, Steven. Yeah, you hold on to Dave with one hand.
Have a good
Oh, great. Come on, let's go. Come on.